is gone live stream.
We are live. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Mastering the Drop, a real view of recovery. This week, we are talking about fulfillment and new wonderful ways to create that in our lives. If you've been following along this week, I've been on a search myself to find hobbies inside of my personal life in those moments that aren't, filled with other things, and looking at areas to create a more positive stimuli, I guess, for myself and my surroundings. And if you've been following, you know that I've identified a couple projects, one personal and one professional. And so I'm super excited about that. But first, let me introduce you to Douglas. We have had a few conversations live in the past, and it's always great. I love having conversation with Douglas, but I'd like for Douglas to introduce himself because he does a much better job at it than I do. Hi, Douglas.
Hi, everybody. Yes, I'm Doug Pfeiffer, and first of all, thanks for having me on. I'm happy to be here. My day job is I'm the CEO of a behavioral health agency in Ohio called Life and Purpose Behavioral Health. I am also the owner and founder of the Resilient Purpose, which is more of our training and online services. We have a video on demand subscription platform called Resilient Purpose Plus, which has a lot of videos and tools related to building wellness and resilience. And so that has been a big effort and focus for me. I do a lot of training, specifically on the impact of trauma, how our brain works in terms of adverse experiences, and also relational health. So I manage an agency, do a lot of training, try to put out content, much like you do, to help others be resilient and build wellness. So.
And you do such a great job of it.
Thank you.
I mean, I did when I was on your show, I had a lot of people engage with me just from, just in our conversation and, just, hearing more even from them about, the benefits of having, been engaged with you. So, just really awesome feedback, just that I'd share.
I didn't know that. I appreciate that. That's
well, I know that most of the communication we do with each other is through our helpers, right? Our doers. But I know it's always nice to hear that feedback, right? That what we teach, train, and our passion purposes, right? Like mine's living free from all of the addictions, negative attachments, and habits that hold you hostage, right? Whether that's Ben and Jerry's or, the bottle of booze you're hiding in the back of the closet, or my fave, right? is the shopping, the 25 items that you got to try to figure out, how am I going to get these in the house without anybody seeing, right?
Mm-hmm.
You guys all know what I'm talking about. You go to Target with 3 things on your list and you come back and you've got like a cart full and you're like, oh no, what did I do? Right? So, that's just my passion space, right? Is all of those little things, those habits that hold us hostage. But, I've just been so moved this week. And, again, I was sharing with you, and most of my followers already know, we had some loss in the last couple of weeks in our family. And, for me, it's always important to make sure I don't slip into that depressive state, right? You don't want to slip into that depressive state. So I've been spending some time in my environment looking around where can I, spruce things up, a spring clean, if you will. And maybe where can I do a little redecorating, a redesign? I know this is going to get a little makeover. But so is a stairwell. And anyway, I have a staircase that I just want to redo, and I want to redo it by hand, and because I know I can. Sure. And so, but I think it's just such an important thing.
Well, the thing that you were kind of talking about that stands out to me is in what I try to focus on is that we are often we wait to take care of things in our life until it gets bad. So, it's really important to kind of emphasize doing daily practice of wellness and health for yourself, so that when you do get faced with a loss, you're better prepared to handle it. Typically, when we are not taking care of ourselves, that makes us more vulnerable to those adversities that come out of left field that we're not ready for. And then that's what's going to make us more likely fall into our depressive state and start engaging in those self-destructive habits that we can often find ourselves in. So I find that, if you can do those things on a regular basis and say, okay, I'm not going to wait till things happen. One of my favorite sayings is pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. So, especially as we get older, we're going to deal with pain. We're going to deal with adversity. There's no way we can escape it. It just happens in our life. We can't. I mean, if anything, the last couple of years has been attributed to that. So how our life can get totally overhauled and we're lost because we weren't ready for it, So it's that we can't do the pop quiz if we, the pop quizzes that happened when we were a kid, and the people that were freaked out about those pop quizzes are the ones that never really did anything to study until it was like the real test, right? So you're lost in those points. So these adversities can often be pop quizzes that we're not ready for.
I love that message. And I hope everybody that's listening, if you're listening now, take a minute, grab a pen, grab a paper, or come back later and listen back through to this recommendation, because it is so imperative. And I talk about this in a different fashion, but I talk about it when I do at what do you want to call them? Presentations, whatever, on why living without habits fixes everything. Because I think we all perform better. We all experience living better at a higher quality when we just create a lifestyle that is fulfilling, not something that is so completely filled with rigidity, right? And one of the examples I give frequently are those folks that if they don't get up in the morning and they're unable to go to their 6 a.m. spin class, their whole day is now derailed.
Right.
And they fall apart and they crumble and they're irritated, agitated, annoyed, frustrated, bothered, and they just get scattered and frazzled and overwhelmed. Like, that's a problem that we need to work on, because you need to have flexibility in your life. And that means like, hey, you know what? My kid's homesick today, which we've all been living with. And the reason I use this is because the pandemic that's been here, everybody's had to shift gears. And a lot of people are still struggling with that. But, we need to be able to say, okay, my kid's homesick from school today, and I can't make it to my 6 a.m. spin class. What can I do instead?
Right.
Here at home, where I'm needed, I can still take care of me, right? Like, I can still live for myself first without feeling guilty, selfish, punished, or restricted. I can insert something else. Or here's a funny idea. Wait till the evening time when your partner, if you're not a single parent, because if you're a single parent, I get you. I was a single parent for a really long time. But, you wait till your partner comes home and you go to the evening class.
And I think, and this kind of happened today. So I've since December have really worked on bettering myself physically. So eating right, exercising, everything like that. And I've been pretty successful and lost, a bunch of the weight that I've wanted to lose. And so I was in this meeting today with a bunch of people, and it was a couple people's birthday. And so this woman that was in the meeting brought a bunch of cookies from this local place called this cakery place. So it was awesome cookies, but she's like, hey, before you leave, have a cookie. And my mind went right there. Like, I can't have a cookie. I can't have a cookie because it's going to derail everything. And then I finally was just like, okay, shut up. Like, it's not going to be the end of the world. I'll have a cookie. It's not, I'm not having 80 cookies. I'm just having one, and I'm, the rest of my day will be focused on what I need to. But we have these goals in our life, and so then we think that when curveballs happen, that it's going to completely derail everything, when in reality it's just a moment in time, and we can adjust and adapt and address those things.
This is an amazing example, because I'm very passionate about our relationships with food, and I'm part of my story is recovering from anorexia. It's the first thing it's my first recovery journey, right? That and traumas, etc. But and then there was some eating, some addictions, food addictions, like sugar, pasta, things like that. So when we're working on our relationship with food, one, it's a lot harder than people would think, because we can't just give up food. Like, right. We can give up alcohol or, something else, right? Not that that's easy. Well, don't get me wrong.
The hardest part is, like, I can manage the food individually, but food is such a social experience that you're in social situations, someone brings cookies, or you go out to dinner, and even though, for a social reason, but you'd rather have maybe made, for health, it'd been better, maybe health wise, to cook something at home rather than going out, but you miss out on those social opportunities. So I think just the next
option, right? Like, choose
but you have to kind of understand that one incident doesn't change everything. It just, it adds. I mean, this is similar to kind of why cheat days can be helpful, or why you have to shake things up and, to make things, you just, what is your habit? Are you, if you don't have any built-in good habits, then those, times that you indulge are going to be certainly more impactful.
Right. And where does your control come in? Right. Because, I'm sure there's a lot of people that are listening, and it's, they're very externally driven, right? So they've given an emotional purpose for cookies. They've given an emotional purpose to whatever, right? And instead, so when they go into that control, all they're doing is white knuckling it past that emotional thing, instead of restructuring it and removing the emotional purpose. Now I can have a cookie without it having an emotional purpose. In fact, when I'm in an emotional state, I have now conditioned myself to not gravitate to any type of food, because they don't bring me peace, joy, comfort, and relief. Although I used to rely on them to bring me peace, joy, comfort, and relief. I know that peace, joy, comfort, and relief comes from within me, right? Mm-hmm. So now it's like, you know what? I feel like a cookie. And so, yeah, the training piece of that was always asking myself, is there an emotional purpose for why I want to put this in my mouth?
Yeah. And are you, if you look at it from our stress response, if you are eating to deal with stress, that's a different experience than eating to have food with a friend, or are you drinking because you got into a fight with your significant other, or are you just going to have a drink with a friend, on Friday night because you just want to catch up? That's a much different experience and a much different association to your brain about how you use the alcohol, the food, or whatever self, defeating pattern or behavior that you have.
Yeah, because if that wine, right, I don't drink any longer. However, if you think about, those big dinners, the big business dinners, and all of the courses that come, and generally done with wine pairing, like that's one thing. It doesn't mean you have to drink all of them. You don't have to drink the full glass, but if you're only having it because it pairs well with the food, and it's not, creating this, and you're not picking it up because, like you said, I've gotten in an argument or whatever, or I need to in order to feel comfortable in this social setting, I need to alter my being. And that's one of the biggest ones. I work with a lot of people with social anxiety, and it's like, I need it to feel comfortable in a social setting. And I'm like, well, that is not productive.
Well, we talk in working with others, we talk about our reward cup. And so there's a lot of things that are rewarding for our brain. Some are positive and some are negative. The most powerful thing that's rewarding for our brain is the human relationship. But then movement, so exercise, movement, music and rhythm is very rewarding for our brain. But so are salty and sweet foods, alcohol and drugs can be rewarding. Any way that you relieve any type of distress, doing a behavior that's value driven or belief driven can be very rewarding. And we all have this reward cup. And if we don't fill our reward cup with things like relationships or these healthy, positive things, then our brain is going to seek out reward however it needs to. And so a lot of times it's very easy to turn to those sweet, salty foods as the way you fill your reward cup, especially if you're lonely and you don't have a whole lot of relational supports. And so easy to turn to drugs and alcohol to fill kind of that void, to fill your cup up. But if you regularly engage in relational reward and you fill your cup up that way, the need to fill your reward cup with sweet and salty foods or drugs and alcohol goes down. In fact, relational rewards more rewarding than alcohol and drugs. But if we don't have that, and we used to talk about a concept when I would do drug and alcohol groups with kids, adolescents, we called it, it was a man named J.C. Chambers who came up with this concept, but it was called drug ships, where you replace the relationships you have with people with the drug. So you engage in a relationship with the drug. So the drug is your significant other, is your partner, and we would go through these, discussions about, how, if your drug was a person, how does it treat you? What would it say, or what kind of person would it be like? And it'd be amazing just kind of what you hear about. They're very controlling. They don't want me to interact with anybody else. They, put me down a lot. It's just interesting to see. But literally, we replace our relationships. We disconnect from others and seek out these, unhealthy rewards, which creates all the problems we see.
It is so unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
It is so unfortunate.
But I think like groups, like when you think about how can I create relational webs for people, like how can I create a healthy support network, so that people have access to that relational reward, so that we can fill the reward cup up in better ways.
Yes. And I think, people, because we're teetering here on this, that depressive state, and catching that before it becomes a problem. And that is just really sticking and sitting with me, because there are so many people that are out there right now that are just hiding in plain sight and suffering in silence, and not realizing, that there are things that we can do to help ourselves, but there's also, there are a lot of different options to engage in life improvement. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of, you offered multiple different options. I offer multiple different options. There, not everything is the 30-day treatment model. Not everything is, a long-term therapeutic journey, which are all great though, right? Like people need to seek what's going to speak to them. But if we're talking about creating a lifestyle where we're engaged and interested in our own well-being on a daily basis, right? Making that lifestyle that isn't so filled with rigid, habitual ways of being, right? Because every day and I hear this all the time, I'm so tired of beating myself up every day, because at the end of the day, I've made really bad choices, or, after certain situations, I just really don't cope well, and we just get tired of beating ourselves up every day. So if we're creating a lifestyle where every morning, and it doesn't have to be exactly this, but every morning, and all of you that are about to say, I don't have time for that, everybody has time Time is a man-made construct. And if you don't have 30 extra minutes in your life, like, I beg to differ. So challenge on. If you don't think you have 30 minutes to an hour to give to you for your life improvement every day, I beg to differ. You need to reach out to either myself or Doug. He'll tell you how to also find it, right? But we want to create a lifestyle. So that might look like when I get up in the morning, I grab my cup of tea, my cup of coffee, whatever that is. And then I sit and I listen. I give myself instant input of something that is going to help promote me to make a positive intention for the day. Right. And so that might be, listening to a guided meditation. It might be listening to a lesson. It might be, something self-reflective or positive motivation. Could be 5, 10, 15 minutes worth. It doesn't even matter how long. And then actually sit down and write for yourself an intention for the day, and then go get ready. Right. Then go get ready and check in with yourself every couple of hours, because what happens is our very first stressor, if we don't close that up, we don't close it up right away, we now are going to, attach it to the rest things throughout the rest of our day. And that might just be because we're sitting around the water cooler telling everybody about the guy that cut us off on the freeway or whatever it is. And we end up attaching things to other things where it doesn't belong. So if every 2 hours we check in with ourselves, I call it the core non-physical feeling check-in, right here, right now in this moment. I feel, what's driving it, how can I improve it, yada, yada, right? Just to make sure like I'm paying attention. And then, at the end of the day, maybe even twice, because I tell my busy entrepreneur parents, before you walk into the house to greet your spouse and your kids, you better package that up and leave it outside, right? We don't need to be bringing work home with us. When I walk out of my office door, I leave work in here. And then, so we need to have a night hygiene routine, right? So we need to not be bringing events from one event into the next event, into the next event, into the next event. But we also need to clear our minds, right? What went well today and why? How could I capitalize on that? How could I, keep that momentum? What didn't go as well as I'd hope? And then what didn't work? And save that for last, so it's not like the big primary focus of your world. And then look for places of sedentary behavior and add something in.
Well, I think there's a couple of things that stand out to me in what you were talking about. I think going back to the beginning of what you said was, people not having time. And I think the first thing is you start with where you're at. So if 30 minutes in your mind is too much, then 30 minutes is too much, and that's where you're at. So let's try 30 seconds, get up and walk around the room, or take some deep breaths, or, call somebody that makes you feel good, like to have a conversation. A lot of what can change your brain for the better doesn't take 30 minutes, doesn't take an hour, is not the traditional 55-minute therapy session. It's the moment-to-moment interactions that you have that I think help change things. So everybody has kind of a moment, and that's kind of what our platform is geared towards, is these really quick kind of many times throughout the day, spend time taking care of yourself, so that you can stay, we call it, staying regulated. Depression is being dysregulated. Suffering from addiction is a state of dysregulation. You're neurologically and physically dysregulated. And so you are seeking out these things to help you get yourself back in balance. So when you take a drug, you're doing it to get back in balance, to feel better, to calm your stress response or whatever. And of course, it leads to all these unhealthy consequences, but ultimately you're trying to regulate. And so if you don't regulate in healthy ways, you're going to continue to choose these unhealthy ways, and you're going to lead into all sorts of unintended consequences and other problems that you didn't want in your life. So what we try to encourage is taking many opportunities throughout the day to do regulation. And that might be it could be as simple as getting up and stretching.
Yes.
If you're stuck behind a computer all day, the more you don't move, the more dysregulated you're going to be, and the more vulnerable you're going to be to stress, because you're not in a good, calm, present state. You're physically uncomfortable, you're struggling, your mind's probably going to go to places that you don't want to go to. So you start thinking bad about yourself and, whatever about your life and things like that. But if you can engage in movement and listen to music on your way in that gets you in a good mood, or, have a phone call with somebody that you care about, that really helps. And doing these things throughout the day so that you don't, because everything, like if I have a thought pop in my head, oh, you're a piece of crap, that's just a thought. That's a state that you're in. You're in a state of dysregulation where you start thinking negatively about yourself. It's not a state you have to stay in.
No.
So when you start having those negative thoughts, it's kind of telling you need to kind of go for a run, go do some push-ups, go do something to kind of change the state you're in. Take a cold shower, go do whatever that's going to change kind of your internal state. But I think what happens is things get really, really bad. And so we feel so overwhelmed by the state that we're in. We think that it's impossible to overcome this. So we continue to reinforce this state that we're in, and we can't find our way out. But if we can start early and, okay, I'm making a predictable pattern of repetitive regulating activity, then your ability to reflect on how you're doing, what's going well, what's not going well, that's going to go a lot easier because you're in a better state to think and reflect and do well.
Yeah.
So I think if you don't have that foundation, if you're not doing things that are good for your brain and body, you're gonna have trouble doing the reflective stuff.
It's always so, like when I talk with somebody and they're in that state of overwhelm, and it's just everything, and they're looking at everything that's not right, and they're so focused on all of the things that aren't right, and they can't fathom a way out because they want one way out for all of the things. And really, if you've got 10 things that aren't really functioning well, or the way that you would prefer them to, or they're functioning poorly, right? You've got 10 of them. They're not all going to need the exact same thing to change, heal, shift, morph, improve, whatever, right? Like we got to look at each one individually. So we have to quit looking for that magic fix, the one big phrase, the one self-help book, the one whatever. We got to look at the whole, the whole picture or the library of it all, and start with, little steps, and we, action plan it, and look at all of the objectives we need to create and say, how can I do this where I only have to focus on one thing at a time? Because then it isn't overwhelming. It doesn't send you into future tripping, what if anxiety. It's more of a, this is what's on my plate today. This is what I need to look at right now.
I compare it to the stock market. So life is not going to be as great. It's not going to, like, when things are going really well, don't get too comfortable, because they're not going to always go really well. Like there are going to be moments where things get worse, but the same is true when things aren't going well at all. When things are going really badly, they're not going to be bad forever. There are things that you can do. Just like the stock market's not going to be really high and making you tons of money all the time. It's going to, like right now, going to hit some really lows, and some of those lows might last a decent amount of time, but they don't stay that way forever. The things kind of ebb and flow. And so what they always instruct you at the stock market is steady with, your plan. Don't kind of always change and always do something different.
And stick to it.
Stay with it. Like, okay, I know, like, yeah, I lost somebody that I care about, but remember, do some deep breathing, do some meditation, do these things that are healthy so that you can deal with it. And absolutely. I think that's really important.
Grief recovery is super important. I've had several people, in the loss of my mom, ask me, that I don't know, they maybe, again, I don't, maybe just my way of living, the way I've set myself up, for me, the pre-planning, right? The importance for me to not fall into a depressive state. has set me up in a good space, because the grieving started before, right? The grieving started a long time ago, or maybe not a long time ago, but over the last few years, the grieving of the loss of her has been, I've been preparing, right? And so people are like kind of baffled by, my ability to keep things going and not, completely shutting down for a period of time, whatever. And everybody grieves differently. I mean, I have a grief recovery specialist on my team, who, generally focuses on that. It's not my specialty. It's not something that I work with people on, because I do know that I have, like a different way of handling it than, than maybe resonates with most people. But it's more about knowing yourself. Knowing yourself and what your needs are going to be in certain situations, or after some outcomes, or, whatever, like, what do I truly need? Who am I? What fills my soul? What fills my cup? Like, going all the way back to the beginning, like, I've decided I need to, zhuzh things up a little bit, like, because having the exact same visual every single day dulls the color, it dulls the vibrancy, right? So I generally do rearrange things about once a quarter, and I just haven't gotten to doing something yet this year. I did one project, but it was a small one, and anyway, so that's why I'm looking to do something that involves textures and working with my hands and creating something of my own, so that when I look at it, I feel satisfaction. I feel I feel success. I feel, whatever it is. Right. And
well, neurologically, you're creating habituation when you don't change your routine ever. So like, and I experience this when I physically work out. If I do the same exercises and I don't ever change it up, then I don't get any gains. At some point I plateau and I don't really make any gains. So I change up my workout every so often. You don't want to change it so much to where you never have any predictability and consistency, but you don't want to do it. It's nice to kind of throw in a change in your routine to kind of jumpstart things. That's the nature of the cheat meal. In reality, it changes up your kind of habituation of your body.
My calendar, right? Like I have morning routines, but that doesn't mean that morning routine has to remain identical. Right. I kind of switched, what I do on Monday to Wednesday, and, like this, just to keep me alive, to not be running on autopilot, to be connected with everything that I do, to be able to feel engaged.
Yeah. And you're going to do most of what you do is going to be unconscious. It's going to be habit. So it's helpful to kind of, kick yourself out of autopilot, because at some point what you're doing isn't going to be effective anymore. And so you have to change it up. And if you don't take those moments to reflect on that, or at least to predictably change it up, you're gonna fall into those habits that get you nowhere. It's the hamster. And that might be why people kind of get really frustrated and not feeling like they're not progressing like they want to, because they've created this routine. It starts doing well for them, but then they start feeling like they're not as fulfilled as they were. And I keep doing what you tell me to do, but it's not working anymore. It's not having the same effect. And it might be because you have to kind of change things up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, I know in my programs where we start to really focus on this level of work in our lives, because we have to create a foundation. We have to have fill our toolbox of psychological skill sets and tactics, right, that are going to work for us, and we got to create that. But then and when we move to that deeper level, that next level, the esteem building, we do this in Evolve Attain. But we also bring in things like strengthening your resilience, life unfolding. But I know for you in your practice, you have some very specific areas where, folks would probably be able to connect with you. And, you know, like you said, you have the short lessons, you have, you know, the little periodic things that come out throughout the day that they, you know, kind of prompts them. But, you know, just so that I can keep it to where so we don't start losing people's attention, because it is 12:35. You know, and I'm really trying to be super disciplined with that, because I know me, I could talk for an hour easy with my eyes closed, no problem. But, you know, you know, help people, you know, understand, like, if they were going to, because I know you're going to drop your contact information into the comments. And the reason, y'all, we don't look for, you know, comments and respond to them is because it's just super distracting when you're having a conversation. So feel free to drop your comments in, but Doug's also going to drop his contact information in there. And as will I, not that on my page you can't find me. But, you know, but maybe you can share with them, like, something that if they were poking around your website, like, what would they maybe want to look at in context to what we're conversing about today?
Yeah, so we created the Resilient Purpose platform. So it is the website is theresilientpurpose.com, and it links us to our Resilient Purpose Plus platform, which is a video on demand subscription service. The goal and mission of this is to encourage people to take regular practice of basically regulating daily. So doing a lot of self-regulation. And we actually encourage a lot more of, like, what we call bottom-up regulation, which is a lot of movement and rhythm and deep breathing, mind body type skills. Doing that, getting into a regular practice of doing that every day. But then also focusing on connection, which is the next level, which is connecting with a support system in your life, whether it's a treatment team like a therapist or a provider, or it's your, you know, best friends, or it's family. Doesn't matter. Relationships are key to resilience. So finding healthy relationships, people that build us up and support us. And then the last piece, which is a lot of what I hear you do with your people, is reflecting and learning from your experience, but being more mindful and present and planful about your wellness and resilience. So instead of waiting for things to get really bad, I'm going to take a proactive, planful approach to my resilience. So we have a regular subscription base where they have access to a lot of videos, skill specific. So doing a lot of mind body skills with me. There's also videos that educate them on things like your brain and stress response and our negativity bias, and just a whole lot of educational things that we think are valuable. So the more you know about how your brain works, the more empowered you can be to be resilient.
Absolutely.
Then we also have an 8-module course that is Build Your Resilient Self. So each module is a particular topic towards building resilience and wellness. And then that is similar, but it's more structured. So the people that kind of really benefit from a structure on how to use the platform, that's for you. And it would be you'd have an accompanying guidebook that gives you a lot of reflective type ways to use the course. And then last is we just have some, like, really small modules. Like we have the regulation module, a mind body module, which has like about 3 or 4 videos that teach you things like balloon breathing or butterfly hug or things like that are going to help you stay regulated and be more mindful. So that's really our biggest platform, our biggest focus right now. And the whole goal is to proactively, just like you brush your teeth every day to have healthy teeth, you're going to work on your resilience every day so that you are tolerant of stress. I look at mental health problems and addiction problems through the stress response and our ability to tolerate stress and stay regulated, even though we're dealing with things that are challenging and tough. So being able to find ways to tolerate stress. And I believe wholeheartedly that if you take a proactive approach, you're better able to handle what is thrown at you, even if it is, overwhelming at times. You're going to be able to work through it. So
that is awesome. I love it. I think resiliency training and regulation training is so important. We touch on it a little bit in our Live Free program, but again, focuses are a little bit different, right? Like I want to be helping everybody live free from the addictions, negative attachments, and the habits that are holding them hostage. So we got to figure out like how to to change, shift, morph, and to evolve so that we can attain and maintain a recovery lifestyle that is lifelong, manageable, and maintainable. But again, we have very, very, very similar passions and very similar focuses. And I love that we can, we have different approaches and different focal points so that everybody that's listening, everybody has a different language that speaks to them, that resonates to them. And I always say there is not one way. There is a way that will work for you, but maybe it's not one. It could be, a combination of a couple people. I'm always telling people, hey, look, go find, because the meditations I like to listen to might not be the ones that you like to listen to, right? Like you've got to add, edit, delete, change, shift, morph, make it your own. Recovery doesn't fit in a box.
The other thing is that the platform is not designed to replace anything. It is really there to support what you're doing. So if you go to therapy, some of the common feedback in the research that we did to try to put the platform together was, I'm learning things in therapy, but I'm having trouble accessing those things in the moment when I need it the most. So that was one of the motivators. So you have access to a video in the moment that you need it, right at your fingertips on your phone, to kind of, okay, I need to regulate right now, and I have a skill right on this platform that I can use, and it would help me. So we wanted to kind of, it's like the other 23 hours. So like when you go to a therapy session, there's 23 more hours in the day, and there's 6 more days in the week if you're lucky. And so we wanted to create a resource that people can use along with all the other stuff that they're doing. If they're going,
we're going to have to talk later. I'm going to have to put that on my resource and services, external resource and services page.
Please do. Yeah.
That would be amazing. Well, we'll get together on that. But wow, thank you so much.
No, thank you. It's my pleasure.
Always, yeah, total pleasure just to have a conversation with you. Amazing. Thank you. Make sure, please drop everybody your information. I know that they're going to be really excited to have that. Anyway, don't go away. We'll disconnect once I stop the live. But thank you so much, everybody, for being here, for watching, for listening in, even if it's just the replay. I get it. Middle of the day doesn't work for everybody, right? But totally appreciate everybody being here, following along. Keep working on finding something for you that's going to continue to elevate you. And we will be back next week. Have a good weekend.
Bye.